Hello everyone, welcome back to the channel. So today I'm going to share with you guys the build guide for my Elemental Hit Slayer, which is the first complete build that I brought to endgame for Path of Exile 3.27 Keepers of the Flame League. And without further ado, let's begin. Okay, I'll just talk about the skill real quick over here. Okay, the skill that we'll be using will be Elemental Hit. The skill receives a sizable buff for 3.27, where the base attack speed increases from 100% to 120%, and the base radius increases from 1 meter to 1.4 meter. Okay, from that statement alone, it might not seem much, but if you can see from the gameplay video that I have posted previously, the sizable attack speed buff and the base radius contributed a lot to the state of the skill right now. Okay, but let's talk about what Elemental Hit really is. Okay, Elemental Hit is a melee attack skill that randomly deals fire, cold, or lightning damage in an area of effect around the target with each use. That use of Elemental Hit will only deal damage of the chosen element, very important, and has more area of effect against enemies affected by the elemental elements of that element, another very important thing. Okay, the skill deals more damage for each elemental element present on enemies. So it has 3 components. It deals any of the chosen element damage, and then it has more area of effects when the enemies affected by when the enemies hit are already affected by the corresponding elemental element of that element. And finally, the skill deals more damage for each elemental element present on enemies. So these are the numbers right here, where it has 80% more area radius against enemies affected by an element of the chosen element, and then 10% more damage, which increases up to 15% with 20 quality. So 15% more damage for each type of elemental element on the enemy. So, and also one thing I also need to highlight, unlike most melee attack skill, Elemental Hit damage mostly depends on the skill gem level itself. So it's one of the few melee skill that highly, that, how to say, the behavior is almost similar to spells in the game, where the gem level contributes a lot to the damage. So yeah, and with that, so it deals added fire, cold, and lightning. So for the build, we'll be inflicting, sorry, I forgot to okay. Okay, before we even hit the enemy, the skill, the build will be using summon skitter bots that have a chilling and shocking effect aura on the enemy. So this allows us to basically have a 2 out of 3 chance to hit the enemy and release the elemental shockwave. Because let's say, for example, our elemental hit deals cold damage, and the enemy is already chill from summon skitterbot, it will release that shockwave immediately from the first hit, which allows for very nice clear. And even then, the skill will still deal base radius if fire damage, a base radius explosion, except it doesn't benefit from the more area radius when we hit it with fire, until it is inflicted with a fire elemental element. So pairing Elemental Hit with Summon Skitterbots is very important, because it allows us to have that first hit area of effect component from the Elemental Hit. Okay, and then, as mentioned before, it deals more elemental damage per each type of elemental element on enemy. Okay, elemental element actually exists. There exists 2 versions for each element. For example, fire can inflict scorch, cold can inflict chill and freeze, and then chill and freeze, and also brittle is the second version, and finally shock can inflict shock and sap for the first and second version. Now we are already inflicting chill and shock on the enemy using our summon skitterbots. So the build will be utilizing Secrets of Suffering, where it says here, it's from a cluster jewel, the interrogation. It says here, you cannot inflict ignite, chill, freeze or shock, but critical strike can inflict scorch, brittle and sap. Okay, we don't really inflict ignite any other way with the build, but we do inflict chill and shock from our summon skitter board. And using this, we can inflict 3 additional elemental ailment, which are scorch, brittle and sap. So all of this can stack together into 5 elemental ailment on an enemy, which allows our elemental hit to benefit from this component, more damage for each type of elemental ailment on the enemy, which gives us 15 times 5, which is 75% more damage multiplier on our elemental hit once the enemy is inflicted with all that elemental ailment. And then finally we'll use the Taming Prismatic Ring, which also has a modifier that is buff based on the number of elemental ailment on an enemy. It says increase elemental damage with hits and ailment for each type of elemental ailment on enemy. Let's take it at 40% at 0 quality but maximum roll. And since we have 5 elemental ailment on the enemy at maximum, this translates to 200% increased elemental damage just from this ring alone. So basically that's the gist of the build. And other than that, it's basically a straightforward strike skill. And that's it for the build intro. Okay, let's start with the pros and cons of the build. And as usual, I'm just going to read it off my notes section that I've already written inside my POB. And okay, sorry, let's touch a little bit on leveling. Okay, as a duelist, I recommend you to start leveling early game with splitting steel, but you can fully transition to elemental hit. My recommendation is only do it after you have satisfied at least 3 out of 4 of the requirements I've written here. Okay, number 1, you have summon skitter boards, very important. Again, I already covered this inside build intro. Number 2, allocated this attack mastery right here. Non-val strike skills target 1 additional nearby enemy. So very important for that clear feel for the melee strike skill build. And then number 3, allocated as many plus melee strike range as possible. Okay, you can get this early here from Master of the Arena, plus 0.3 melee to melee strike range, 0.3 meter, and then here 0.1 meter, 0.3 meter, and the mastery here another 0.3 meter. I'd recommend you at least to get from this node and this cluster right here, then only you transition to melee to elemental hit. You can get an additional sources of melee strike range from here, weapon artistry 0.2 meter, and also from our first ascendancy impact 0.4 meter, which leads us to the 4th requirement, first layer ascendancy impact. It's optional that you transition to elemental hit after your first layer ascendancy, but you can also do it before if you want to get the feel of the build as early as possible. But you can it's very noticeable once you get impact, because it has the line 5% increase area of effect per enemy kill recently up to 50%. Since we don't have any scaling of our area of effect yet at that point in the game, that increase 50% increase is basically 50% more already. That's not counting what area of effect modifier that is already built inside elemental hit skill gem. Anyway, let's go over to the pros and cons. Pros, it has very fast clear for melee build. It has good DPS and uptime. We're sitting at like 20 million plus DPS. It has great survivability. As you can see here, our effective hit pool is 278,000 with all our buffs up and running. And it's also very cheap to start and gear. I already covered this inside my week 1 video. You can go ahead and check it out to better understand. I was basically using 1 set of starter gear all the way to red maps. Okay, the cons, it's a melee build, so yeah. And then it's also a strike melee build, which is another downside that people don't like to play, and having no range on your strike skill feels really bad. I mean, it's basically a melee skill at the end of the day, so all the cons that come together with a melee skill is still there. Okay, next is the offensive and defensive layers of the build. Okay, for offensive layers, we have elemental hit. That's again, scales really well with levels. Already covered that at the build intro. And because we're hitting with all 3 elements, we're using Trinity, one of the best support gem in the game. And then Elemental Equilibrium, which is this keystone right here that says hits that deal elemental damage, remove exposure to those elements but inflict exposure to other elements. So if you hit with a fire hit, it will set up exposure on the enemy for cold and lightning, which is typically your next hit. If you hit it with either cold or lightning, you would get the benefit of that exposure, which is minus 25%. And then that cold hit will inflict lightning and fire exposure to set up for the next following hit. So that's the first layer. And the second layer, we have Secrets of Suffering. Again, already covered elemental ailment inflicting on the enemy with Summon Skitterbot for Scorch Brittle Sap plus Chill and Shock, and then add it up together with the Elemental Hit modifier, where it grants more damage per hit per type of elemental ailment, together with the taming. Okay, so we're going all in on the elemental ailment. The only thing we do not inflict is Ignite and Freeze. Okay, Ignite is whatever for melee strike skill. It's just a shame we need to sacrifice Freeze in order to inflict these 3 elemental ailment. Now what we do with what Scorch Brittle and Sap does is, Scorch is a fire alternate fire elemental ailment which reduces enemy resistances, all resistances, not just the fire hit, so cold and lightning as well. Brittle gives our attack a base plus crit chance on the attack, which is very nice, up to 6%. And then Sap causes enemy to deal less damage, up to 20%, I believe. Yes. So we sacrifice the ability to inflict these 2 for the ability to inflict these 3 alternate elemental ailment instead. So yeah, I mean technically Sap is defensive layer, but I just included it here for to make it clearer to explain on the elemental ailment. And then next, move on to defensive layers. We have armor, endurance charge, spell suppression, freeze and shock immunity. Okay, armor is something that we have from our gears. We're mostly using a mixture of armor and evasion rating gear, and then we convert that evasion rating using iron reflexes into armor to get at least 50,000 armor, because the build will be using molten shell. Okay, so next we have endurance charge. We get the maximum number of endurance charge from our Ascendancy, and uptime from charge mastery plus gain charge on kill and enduring cry. So what I'm talking about is here, masterful form that gives us maximum endurance charge is equal to your maximum frenzy charge, and we have +1 to maximum frenzy charge. Our maximum frenzy and endurance charge in effect becomes 7, so we have 7 maximum endurance charge. And the sustain we get from here, Disciple of the Unyielding, chance to gain endurance charge on kill, which is something we get during mapping. And then together with charge mastery, increase charge duration, plus the skill enduring cry to generate endurance charge during bossing. So we get it from there. Then we have spell suppression from our tree and from our gear, 100% spell suppression chance. Freeze and shock immunity we get from our major pantheon, and then temper shield aura. Next layer is block, high life regen and overleash. Okay, block, we don't really invest in it in the build. So we're using Replica Mistwall, which is a heist unique that gives very good block chance for very little investment. Where is it? Here. Look at the bottom line there. You are at maximum chance to block spell damage if you have not blocked recently. That is very good, especially during bossing, because you're typically dodging boss's attack, and if you do get hit, you at least have 75% spell block chance. So for no investment, Replica Mistwall for me is very good. And then we have high life regen. Currently the build has 1.7k life regen. This is from our passive skill tree, from Consecrated Ground, which is from Purifying Flame, and our Bottle Faith flask. We have a crafted flask modifier suffix here. Regenerate 3% of life per second during effect. And then we have flat life regen, increased life recovery rate from our gear. And finally we have layers of less damage taken from Sep, okay, up to 20% less damage taken. We have Fortify, again 20% from Fortify. We get Fortify from our body armor here. Implicit melee hits have chance to Fortify. We have Flesh and Stone, where it gives us up to 20% less damage taken for enemies within Sense Stance. And our Sense Stance is actually very, very big. The radius is very big here. This is the radius for our Sense Stance, and this is our characters. And we are playing a strike skill, so typically the bosses, the enemy will always be within the bosses anyway. Will almost always be within our strike range. So the enemy will deal less damage taken from that. And finally, Brutal Fervor for 10% reduced damage taken from Leeching. So add all of that up, our effective hit pool is currently 279,000. And this is without okay, I mean this is with Graph Blood, but Graph Blood is not really properly reflected in POB yet. So the effective hit pool will be much higher when we use our graphs. Okay, up next is the Mastery, Ascendancy and whatnot. Okay, I'll just talk about the important mastery. First, you want to have attack mastery plus 1 strike target. Again, I already highlighted, very important. Charge mastery for increased charge duration. This is for all of your charges uptime. Sword mastery, melee strike range. And finally, another sword mastery, frenzy charge on hitting the enemy. Something very important for frenzy charge uptime during bossing. Okay, Ascendancy. We have number 1, mandatory is impact. For all the benefits that I already explained, and then Brutal Fervor for Overleech, and then for number 3 and 4 you can either choose Bane of Legends or Masterful Form. You can take whichever one you want first. If you want more damage, take Bane of Legend. If you want more survivability, take Masterful Form. But of course, always ensure that you have a way to generate those those endurance charges if you want to take Masterful Form first. So it's a choice between offense and defense. For Bandits, Kill All for 1 point. Pantheon, Major Pantheon will take Soul of Brian King for stun avoidance and freeze immunity, and Minor Pantheon take Soul of Reslata for life loss. Okay, up next is the gem setup for the build. Okay, our main skill which we are using will be Elemental Hit, so we link it with Trinity, Awaken Elemental Damage. Awaken once you get access to it. Elemental Damage with attacks. Inspiration, Hypothermia, because the enemy is always chill with our Skitterboard. And finally, increase critical damage. So everything just add damage. Something very important I need to highlight: do not use multi-strike, because if you use multi-strike, your attack will repeat, but it will repeat with the same element as the first hit. So let's say you when you click the skill, you choose fire, it will hit fire. We don't want that, because we want it to be alternating as quickly as possible and for each hit as possible, because number 1, we're taking elemental equilibrium, and also because we want to inflict every element in our Secrets of Suffering as fast as possible. So you might think that if you click it in POB, multi-strike leads to more damage. It's actually not in practice. So again, very important, do not use multi-strike. And then we have Lip Slam for our movement skill, link with faster attack and power charge on crit. Okay, we can use this to generate our power charges on demand, because we have increased charge duration mastery, which allows our power charge to have 20-second charge duration. So if you see your power charge going down, just Lip Slam on the boss and basically enjoy that 20-second of uptime from the get-go. Okay, for Aura, our mana reservation is taken by number 1, Summon Skitterboards, and then Precision, and then Flesh and Stone. Actually, the only important aura is these 3 right here. So you can socket it anywhere because it doesn't have to be linked at all. Skitterboard is mandatory. Precision, we want it for accuracy and critical strike chance, and then Flesh and Stone for Sense Stance for that defensive strike skill purpose. And finally, Temper Shield I'm using for shock immunity and spell block, but it's actually a flexible slot. and you can actually socket whatever you want if you don't care about that shock immunity. I just do, so that's why I'm taking Temper Shield. So Temper Shield is actually flexible. Cast 1 damage taken, we have Immortal Call plus Purifying Flame. Okay, this is my standard. Sorry, this is not Immortal Call. This is actually Molten Shell because we're running an armor build. So do I have this? I think I have this. Molten Shell. Yep. Sorry, Molten Shell. Okay. So nothing much. I just Purifying Flame because I like the Consecrated Ground life regen, and then. First utility, we have Berserk, Enduring Cry, and Blood Rage. Okay, Enduring Cry, already talked about it. Blood Rage, simply because we want more attack speed and then chance to gain Frenzy during mapping. Berserk is something that we click whenever our reach is at maximum. Doesn't even have to be maximum, because the build is using Admiral's Arrogance Glove, where it says here you have a chance to, if you would gain reach on hit, you instead gain up to maximum reach. So with that line alone, it allows you to sustain your Berserk for quite some time. You will see that your reach goes down, and then once in a while it goes back to 30, and then starts falling down again, and then goes back to 30. So Admiral's Arrogance pairs really well with Berserk and fast hitting skill. And then finally, the second utility skills, I have Summon Holy Relic, Mid Shield, and Culling Strike. Okay, this is again another flexible slot. You can do whatever you want with it. I just found out this to be something I don't really like using Summon Holy Relic during tougher content, because it keeps dying a lot even with Mid Shield. But having this Culling Strike on demand is extremely good. But you can honestly socket whatever you want. It's just that Summon Holy Relic also gives the life regen on your character. And then finally, let's talk about the last part of the build, which is gearing. Okay, for gears. For weapon, again for leveling, you just use Fidelitas Spike, because the damage come from elemental hit comes mostly from gem level. So Fidelitas Spike is one of the weapon that has like 2.08 attack speed, I believe. So I just use that towards endgame. And then you can use a rare one-handed sword during transition before you get your final best in slot weapon, which is Paradoxica, because Paradoxica has the line that says attack with this weapon, deal double damage. So it will automatically double all your elemental hit damage rolls. For your rare one-handed weapon, one sword, you want something that has high attack speed, just like Fidelitas Spike, but you can use some modifiers like crit multi, crit chance, increase elemental damage with attacks, and things like that. So to buff up your elemental hit damage from Fidelitas Spike, in case Paradoxica is like quite expensive, out of your reach. For offhand, for our shield, early game we use Lycosidae. This is a shield that allows you to all of your hits cannot be evaded, so you don't have to think about accuracy during when using Lycosidae. You don't even have to turn precision yet. And for endgame, you can transition to Replica Mistwall, which I already covered previously. Only transition once you are able to solve the accuracy problem, and not before. Otherwise, just keep using Lycosidae. For helmet, we want double influence rare on the endgame. We want life regen, and increased life recovery rate, and plus increased life recovery rate plus rest. And then the implicit that we want is Fist taken as elemental, and reduce mana cost of attacks. For body armor, we want defense and resistances, and spell suppression. Spell suppression is very important. You need at least 20% on your body armor to cap your spell suppression. Don't get any lower than 20 for the endgame version. For implicit, you want melee hit chance to 45 plus crit multi for more damage. Gloves, again we're using the unique glove Admiral's Arrogance. The reason we're using it is not because of the gain maximum range on hit, it's because elemental hit is dependent on skill gem level, and Admiral's Arrogance has the line where it says +3 level to all melee skill gem, including elemental hit. So it's a huge contribution to DPS. It says here 37% more damage from Admiral's Arrogance. Boots, we want rest, double influence rest. We want life, movement speed, increased life regen, and plus more resistances. So this is for the endgame version. And the implicit that we want life regen per endurance charge and action speed, increased action speed from the Searing Resort and Eater of Will. For belt, we want rest and final endgame version transition to Stygian Vice. We want life, strength, chaos resistance, and elemental damage with attacks, and preferably an open suffix because we can craft the modifier, the bench craft. Where is it? Chaos resistance against damage over time, which is something very good if you cannot find any chaos resistance elsewhere. This will allow you to have like the belt alone would give 76% chaos resistances against damage over time, which is coincidentally what most form of chaos damage is. It's a damage over time. For the rings, early game, use Kikazaru plus rare. I just like Kikazaru as a leveling unique. Your mileage may vary. For endgame, you want to use Taming, already covered inside the build intro. And then you catalyst it for more damage. You can actually bring that 40% increased elemental damage with hits and element up to 48% if you have a perfect roll plus perfectly quality. So you can just a reminder, you can catalyst it and then raring to roll life in Chaos Rest, and then preferably an open prefix to craft flat mana cost, so that your Lip Slam would cost 0 mana and your attack would cost only 9 mana cost, and the rest you can sustain from your Overleech. Amulet, we're using Replica Dragonfang's Flight. This gives plus level to elemental hit, reservation efficiency, and lowered attribute requirement, so all of them are very nice. And the anointment that we want to take will be plus 1 to maximum frenzy charge. And then jewels. Okay, Lethal Pride, we want to put it over here at the Ranger skill tree. The mods that we really want are here. Gain range on melee hit. You need at least, I would recommend at least plus 2 range on melee hit for the build, just to sustain your range. And the rest, you can take life, melee damage, maximum 45. I mean, this one is whatever. Melee crit multi. The rest is damage. And the good thing about Lethal Pride also is because it gives a lot of strength attribute for the build to satisfy all the stats requirement. And then the interrogation for Secrets of Suffering here. Light of Meaning, we put it over here inside near the Duelist skill tree. Light of Meaning here gives 7% increased armor. This is something typically very cheap. Well, at least in softcore anyway. It is very cheap for what it does, because as you can see here, it gives almost 12,000 armor just from this node alone. And because it's we don't really benefit much from other Light of Meaning, this is something very good when your passive skill tree is very cluttered, very concentrated, very dense. For large cluster jewel, we have Fuel the Fight, Feed the Fury, and Martial Prowess for attack speed, accuracy, and damage. And Fuel the Fight and Feed the Fury is for Leech. Before you get Fuel the Fight and Feed the Fury, you need to gain your Leech elsewhere. I recommend either here, Life and Mana Leech, or here, Attack Damage Leech as Life, Attack Damage Leech as Mana, whichever you prefer. But you need to get other sources of Leech first. You can get Life Leech from this small node here, from Slayer Ascendancy, but you need at least Mana Leech from your skill tree. If you still haven't got the Leech from Fuel the Fight from your cluster jewel. And then what else? We have Life plus Crit Multi Jewel. Okay, so Life, attack speed, Crit Multi. And then for your Stygian Vice Abyssal Socket, you want Life plus Accuracy rating. Accuracy rating here is very important because that flat accuracy allows you to have 100% hit chance. Then finally for our flask, we have Bleed Life Flask, we have Silver Flask here, Bleed Life Flask, we have sorry, not here. Jade Flask, Silver Flask, Amethyst Flask. Jade Flask for evasion rating, Silver Flask for onslaught, Amethyst Flask for more chaos resistances, and for the suffix we want reduce effect of curses, evasion rating, and here a crafted regenerate life per second during effect. The final slot I'm just using Bottle Faith for more damage, but again this is also flexible. This is just what I think is best in slot for more damage. And yeah, I think that's about it for the build guide. I recommend you watching the week 1 update for more clarification on how I build my character, and to supplement this build guide in case you don't really understand. I'm not really attaching a gameplay video anymore because I'm just doing a screening. I'm just trying to do a new thing. You can look at my gameplay video inside the playlist because I want to keep the build guide as short as possible. But leave me a feedback if you think you prefer to have that gameplay video inside the build guide. But other than that, if you have any other question, feel free to write it down in the comment section down below, and I'll try to answer them whenever I have the time. Currently I'm not playing the build anymore because I've already moved on to another character. But I have to say, as far as melee strike skills go, this reached a decent level of satisfaction, in my opinion anyway. Anyway, that's it. Thank you very much. Bye.